Hello, everybody. If you're watching on YouTube, on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel, well, it's the only place you can watch at the moment. This is the what we call Full Course Yellow. It's a gathering that we get together every week from the crew on In Pit Lane, because we're not in the studio doing actual real television stuff at the moment. We're actually we're just getting together on a Thursday night and talking about motorsport. And by my word, there is an awful lot to talk about. By the way, if you would like to join us any week here on the panel and have your two bobs worth, by all means you can do that. You can just go to the link that is usually available here on the go to the Jot form page, fill out the form, ask for a request to join the panel, and we can invite you along. We'd love to have you sometime in the next couple of weeks. It'd be great to see you here.
So dinner with Stuart.
Yes, you can sit here and watch Stuart eat his tea, which is...
well, in my defence, I was late back in after finding if the all-wheel drive in my car will spin the rear wheels.
Right, okay. And the answer is... important. The answer is?
$64
it's 2,000 kilos worth of traction getting machine.
So I take it that's a no.
The front wheels were spinning. The rear wheels just got the weight transfer and it took off, and that was on dirt.
Right.
Okay.
It does pull in a straight line though. Just dead straight line. Beautiful.
That's good.
That's good to know. Hey, we've got a lot to talk about. Let's not talk about Voyagers and their traction. Let's talk about Bathurst last week. Everybody thinks Shane van Gisburgen wins Bathurst. I was really happy about that. Pete, I imagine you watched it all. Yeah. What are your verdicts of Bathurst?
I was happy with that victory, and I'll concede that the safety car rule worked better than I thought it would. I still don't like it because in the past you've had Chaz Mostert and Paul Morris win, yes, sure, with the aid of the safety car, but it's been a more natural process. But they've gone from last to winning it without having a lucky dog style getting a lap back. So, but I will concede it worked better than I thought it would. It wasn't the disaster I thought it would be.
Yeah. Anybody else? Doc, did you have a look?
I planned myself on the couch for most of the day, got some cheese and Vicky's and Cabana, and they were well worth the munchies. Good race. We've always said for a few years now, it's an absolute out and out sprint race because you've got the two endurance drivers. They've, going about their business the whole day, taking in shifts. All the teams are full on all day, and they've even, I think, DJR Penske upgraded their brake package this year to a click on, click off, and they gained a few seconds in the pits, which didn't really transition to on the track because they've still got to wait for their refueling, which is obviously by a litre by seconds time to refuel the cars. But yeah, look, it's great. That safety car, the couple that we had with the 10, 12 laps to go, actually made it more spicier, a bit like your dinner from the Sri Lankan restaurant this week, Brett. But it bunches the field up and it gives everyone a red hot go. And with cold tyres or semi-cold tyres, and they've got you've got the opportunity on a big track like that, different corners, different straights, different speeds. Someone will do something stupid and throw a car down the road, and what do you know? So it didn't turn out to be in the top 5, top 10 that happened this time, but it was still intense watching those last 10 laps.
I don't know. I got a completely different read on the race. I put it on early in the day and tried to watch it, and it was boring. There was no real excitement to it. The pit stops about 20 laps from the end, you could tell by Reed Park that Gizzy was already gapping Waters. Right? There was already that gap forming. Every time there was a restart, by the time he got to Reed Park, he was already making ground on him. So it was amusing listening to the commentary team saying, it's going to be a red hot go at the finish and whatever. And you could already see the gap forming halfway through each lap after a restart. I think it was a fantastic drive for the team. I mean, they basically won by not making mistakes where other people were putting the cars off. And that's the first thing you've got to do, is not make mistakes.
I think the thing about Van Gisbergen that I was happy about is I was really worried about that, having come so close over the last few years, I was starting to worry that the chain would become like the new Glenn Seaton, that the best driver never to win Bathurst sort of thing. He'd come close so many times, and for one reason or another never got up. And it was sort of good, I suppose, in terms of setting off in bookending the experience of Holden as a factory team at Bathurst. It was good that in their last appearance as an official factory team, for what it was worth, that they actually got up and won. Good to see. I mean, Garth Tander has now gone into a very impressive list of people who have won Bathurst 4 times, including legends like Alan Moffat, for instance, Jim Richards. So that's so well done to Garth. That's good. I think what it showed once again was the importance of the co-drivers. If you have a look at the people who were standing on that podium, there wasn't sort of a super two to everybody who was driving in that, everybody who was co-driving, Warren Luff, Garth Tander, they were the people with lots of experience.
Luffy's the fastest stunt driver in Australia. But as you said, though, Brett, couldn't go to a better guy that's missed out. But can you imagine Roland Dane's thoughts just before that last pit stop? He'd be thinking in his head, guys, no one stuff it up this time, all right?
Just a note on the driver, there's not really any B-class fill-in drivers anymore. Everybody is at the same sort of top level, and I think that'll show with maybe a few more of them getting rides overseas, because they've got to progress somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's the problem when you look at people like our mate Tom Randall and Will Brown, a few of those other people. It's I thought Brodie Kostecki did a really, really good job as well. He came under a bit of criticism from people. He's blocking people. It was his right to block people. He was not there making up the numbers. He didn't do anything ridiculously dangerous, or I think he wasn't going to be intimidated. He held his line. He held his ground, and I thought he did a really good job. I was really impressed with what he did.
And with the overall, they were all good.
With the co-drivers, that was happening all across the weekend. Like even James Golding, he was doing really well throughout all the co-driver sessions and in the race. He had the problem with the gears at the start, but he came up. He did really well. He was doing that all weekend.
And don't forget, not just the supercars coins I mentioned last week, and they're being released, but don't forget to order your limited edition bottle of water from, especially from Bathurst from last weekend as well too. Contaminated with COVID, just for your pleasure.
Bathurst or whatever it's.
H2O
with a bit of extra COVID in it. Yeah, I mean that's a bit of a worry, but once again you have to point out that it could be, as they pointed out, it's not necessarily a sign that anybody had it. It was a case that somebody may have have had it in the past. Was shedding it, viral load shedding. So it's just a bit of advice for people to be very, very careful. I mean, but as we've seen with Lance Stroll and a few others in Formula One, you've got to be very, very careful. And there's already some, there's some worries. I know earlier this week there was no guarantee that this week's Grand Prix was, for Portugal Grand Prix was actually going to happen, because the rates there are going up. There's still a few people in the Formula One bubble who have got the dreaded lurgy, but anyway, it is going ahead. Also going ahead this weekend is the Spa 24-hour. That'll be interesting because they've got very high cases in Belgium at the moment. It's leading Europe right now, so I don't know that it's. Well, who knows? I mean, whether these things should be going ahead or not, but they are going ahead. So we look at them, and and whatever. But speaking of, I'm a bit like Stuart. I watched the first, like 90 minutes or so, and they got basically into the procession, and it was like, okay, yeah, I can probably take a break now. It's getting like basketball. I mean, basketball is one of those things. You watch the first 5 minutes, you watch the last 5 minutes, and that's really all you need to know. It's a bit Bathurst now to me is sort of, you watch the start, you watch the first 10 or so laps, and then you sort of dip into it over the course of the day, and then you watch the last hour.
I must admit,
there's no narrative anymore because it's basically a one class race now, and it's also effectively a one make race. I mean, they might have different badges and different body styles, and the motors are sort of different, but essentially it's a one make series.
I'll put up my hand. I actually got my tax done in the middle of the race, so yes, I did take a break, and so, there you go. I enjoyed the first 5 minutes. I enjoyed the last 5 minutes, but I tried to make some money in between.
We point out at this stage that Doc is in fact the only one on this panel who actually earns enough money to pay tax at the moment.
No, actually, pay tax. I think the government takes it away from us all. I think that's probably the point. But anyway.
Speaking of V8 supercars, an article today in Australia on the website for Australian Auto Action by Mark Fogarty, once again saying that Penske is about to leave DJR, also saying that Scott McLaughlin is definitely staying in America. Scott has said that he is coming back. As far as he's concerned, he's saying that at the moment this is a one-off. He'll see how it goes, but he will be back, and he's contracted to DJR for next season, or DJR Penske. I don't know. That's going to be the interesting thing. Is his contract with DJR Penske, or is it just with Penske? I'm not sure how that works out at the moment, but the fact that we've heard the rumours for a long time, the fact that Fogarty's running it now, I mean, Fogs does have very good contacts, and in particular with that team, and not necessarily locally. So I would say that if that's I think there's more of a chance of that happening now, and we will hear about that, sooner rather than later. Which means, one, what happens to Dick Johnson Racing? Dick's already said that he's sort of set up that even if Roger does pull out, that they'll be able to continue. But obviously, they'll need to find at least one new driver. So who would that be?
Well, the word is Anton Di Pasquale is one name that's thrown in the frame. And Will Davison is another one that's
it'll be a real merry-go-round. Sorry to use the old cliche, won't it? Because not only are the drivers going to be following and chasing sponsorship, and there's going to be favoritism from team bosses and owners and the wreck owners. I've got all the gossip as well, though, too, from the wrecks, which will be the changing over the things. And the rumour mill in the last day or two is Tim Blanchard has purchased Phil Mundy's wreck on the quiet, which at the moment Tickford are completely denying, Tim Edwards and the gang. But it's a strong rumour that Tim Blanchard's got that because he owns a wreck with Brad Jones Racing, and Brad's been leasing that off him for this year. So Tim wants to start up his own two-car team next year, take the wreck back from Brad, got the one he's got from Phil, have the two-car teams, and he's also got the car that will come back from the Chaz Mostert crashed 2019 car. So he'll have the car that Phil Mundy's been using for James Courtney, has a previous chassis which is still up to date and got completely refreshed by the Tickford team at the start of the year. So he'll have two cars at his disposal, brand new to put together. Two Mustangs they are, in fact, just for those followers out there. Plus, Tim Edwards has confirmed that he's actually in the process of almost finished one car and another car, and they're going to have two new Mustangs ready for next year as well too. So add all that into the big cauldron boiling pot of Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, it's always interesting at the end of the year, especially after a year like this. I mean, there are going to be sponsors who committed and who had already signed and had paid up on this year who might not be back next year. We're in a year of transition because obviously the year after the Gen 3 cars come in, and there might be some people waiting to actually sort of jump sides as well. It wouldn't surprise me if a few of the people, I've heard nothing, this is not a rumor, this is nothing I've heard, but it wouldn't surprise me if somebody like the Kellys decided that like one of those Camaros would be a pretty slick thing to run. Also, I think that we know that Walkinshaw Andretti United want to run something different. If they can't, I think at the moment they're saying that to try and leverage some support out of General Motors, because it's like, hang on, we're your special vehicles, people in Australia, and you're going to be giving the money to 888. We want some money too. Otherwise, your special vehicles operation might end up running a Kia.
And at Bathurst, where the signage for the Kia dealership was in Talon Bend, there was signage for a Holden dealership at Bathurst.
Yeah, I think that was. I think they did that primarily in Adelaide for the Bend. That was just a local pickup, and it was the same with with the Bathurst one as well. They were just it's just an area that they can sell off to individual local sponsors. So as they go from state to state, they sell to whoever they can get locally. So for however much that costs. But yeah, interesting. It was I think
Brett,
what's that?
I have a thought, and I'd get everyone's opinion on this. With the amount of investment that some of the overseas teams have got or have put in, would they be more likely to want to buy out their local partners, such as with DJI Penske, buy out Dick and just have Penske racing Australia?
I don't think he, because he doesn't have to. I mean, he's bought. I'm not sure what the breakdown is between Penske and DJR.
That was 50. It was reported as 51-49 back when it was signed.
But Ryan Story has an ownership as well now.
Yeah, well, that was the rumor going around that Penske would pull out, and that Ryan would end up with Penske's side of the deal. Ryan and perhaps
don't forget that
others.
Penske resurrected DJR. They were on the brink of obviously bankruptcy and completely getting wiped out of supercars at the time. So it was really touch and go whether they'd actually DJR would continue as a conglomerate. So they basically might have even been in debt in some places. So it's obviously put them back on the map. If they do announce it, unfortunately, Penske, Rogers said, well, I've had enough of Australia. It's been great. I've got some awesome success over there. Can't really win much else now. And Scott's coming over
wasn't he
with
just
us.
coming into it to try and win a championship?
Yeah, well, as I said, it was also the fact that he was launching his transport company, Penske Transport. Before you joined, we were talking about this before we went on to YouTube, and I don't know about. I mean, you're out and about a bit as well. I haven't seen too many Penske transport trucks on the road. So, and he's coming into a market that was very well established in Australia already, with people like Toll and Fox and Jack Smith, a whole bunch of people. I mean, it's a very, very it's a very, very keen market in Australia, and it's long established. And the Penske name obviously doesn't have the impact that it has in America. It's like, this is Roger Penske's, and who the is Roger Penske? It's like, legend, American racing legend. Well, means nothing to us, pal. So I don't know how that business is going in Australia, but that was part of the reason for getting in there, was to raise the Penske brand name in Australia, which it's done now. I mean, when people now, if you say, "Oh, that's a Penske truck," people go, "Oh, that's the guy that's the American guy who's in with Dick Johnson." You know, so everyone knows. So it's done its job. If that was its job, and now he can either move out completely or he can wind back because he's winding back already. I mean, you know, they got out of about to get out of IMSA. The Sebring 12 Hour will be their last race with the Acura cars in the IMSA North American Sports Car Championship. So they're not running at IMSA next year. So they pulled out of IMSA. They might pull out of supercars in Australia. Obviously, they're going to stick around in NASCAR, but apart from that,
consolidating a little bit, Brett, and maybe then, obviously, when the world problems we're all facing at this stage around where we are, maybe in a year or two's time, he'll, you know, when things start flowing again, he'll go back, you know, expand operations.
Well, Roger is very famous. I mean, if you look at his history, he's very famous for not spending his own money. In terms of, you know, he's logistically very good in that if somebody wants to come in and run something somewhere, like a manufacturer, it's a safe hand to go in and talk to Roger Penske. So you'll have him, he'll still be running IndyCar, and we'll talk about that in a second with Scott McLaughlin, but he'll still be running NASCAR. He doesn't need to run IMSA at this stage, but he's made no secret of the fact that he would love to go back to Le Mans. He would love the chance to win at Le Mans. So, you know, with everything that's changing at Le Mans in terms of the fact that they're going to allow the IMSA top-level prototypes into the Le Mans 24-hour, as well as the manufacturer hypercars, is this an opportunity for somebody like Honda, who are getting out of Formula One and who are saying we're looking at doing things that are more, you know, environmentally, you know, challenging. We're looking at more hybrid and promoting hybrid. We're looking at promoting hydrogen. Le Mans is the ideal place to do that. And if you want somebody to run that team from a logistical point of view, from a race team point of view, why not go over and just throw, you know, a bucket full of money at the captain and say, hey, Roger, can you run that for us for the next 3 or 4 years and see if you can win Le Mans? And I think he'd probably say yes.
Did you catch anything of the Goodwood Festival of Speed, which happened to coincide with our race over here on the weekend?
It was really, once again, I've always said that in terms of live streaming, Goodwood has been the gold standard. And once again, they did a really, really good job of this. This is the template that everybody should be looking at. If you're going to be doing something during COVID situations and running a live stream, and the reason it worked is because they didn't run a race meeting, they ran a television show. They produced it as a television show. It had a running sheet like a television show. It had different segments like a television show. It was made specifically for online consumption, and it really worked well. They had some live races. They went from live races into more sort of, you know, like exhibition things. They had mini documentaries. They had stuff from the past. They had interviews that were staged like proper interviews. It wasn't like, you know, what we do and what, you know, they do at most race meetings, which is, you know, standing in front and saying, how do you feel in pit lane. They had, you know, a dedicated studio with, you know, with seats and you know, a proper set and proper sound and proper soundproofing, and they did a really, really good job. It's still on there. They're still broadcasting live. In fact, they just got everything on a loop. Another thing they do really well. So just go and have a look. It doesn't matter what time you tune in. You'll find something amazing on there, and they just did a really, really good job.
Just a hello to Richard Catchlove. Richard Catchlove, who just said hello to everyone, to all the guys. Thank you, Richard.
Hello, Richard. Goodwood was fantastic. Stuart?
Sorry for cutting you off, Stuart. Yep.
I was watching Goodwood's YouTube channel, and they had a cut of just all the drone shots, and they were pretty damn spectacular.
Yeah.
They had the drone running just above roof height, with the camera coming backwards from the chicanes and then climbing up and the cars going underneath. And it was cinematic quality footage, which you do not see very often from a lot of race broadcasters. It was really well done.
And that is the thing that they said they'd be able to do because there were no spectators. They've said,
Yep.
We'll be able to get shots we've never been able to get before. We'll be able to, the cars will access parts of the track and parts of the property they've never been able to access before, simply because, we've got, 100,000, like I haven't been to the Revival. I've certainly been to the Festival of Speed, and you've got, like we only went on, we did go all 3 days now that I remember. But, on the Saturday and Sunday, they had 110,000 people there. That place is packed. And
there are lots of
limitations.
Special stages that they did this time around with the noise of the Stratos going through the tunnel. Ah, beautiful.
Yeah, they were able to mic things up well. They did a really, really good job. As I said,
that
they
course
always
was
do.
laid out for people to enjoy the sound and the sights, and it was done really well.
Yeah,
going from one extreme to sorry.
Go ahead, Doc.
I was going to say it is well done. I caught snippets of it. I had a pretty busy weekend with work, supercars, and trying to squeeze in as much Goodwood as festival, and just to the amateur eye, like you said, it's like bright shiny lights. As you said, it would go from one segment, then it features something else. And then, you'd have, and like Stuart says, and Stuart knows it because he's done movies and he's done miniseries, he's done TV. He does predominantly, Stuart does a lot of our live stream for In Pit Lane these days. So I had a little bird jump on my shoulder during the week, and she said she worked with you on a movie back in 2012. I'll tell you about that another time. So I know you've done movies as well. Something Murder Drone, I think it was, but I'll get back to that another time. There's a flash.
Yeah, there's stories there.
Yeah, there's flashback from the past, but we'll do in the gossip column of a full course yellow. We'll call that full course blue another time.
Okay, now you have to tell me who it was that you were speaking to.
Or fair, because I've got to clear it through. I've got to clear it through the lawyers first.
Yeah, are they in front of the camera or behind the camera?
Let's just stick. Let's just stick to motorsport at the moment. We go into tall tales and true. From Stuart's legendary past, we're going to be not only we're going to be here for hours, we're going to be it's going to be ladies and gentlemen, start your lawyers. So
exactly, yeah. Anywho, to just sorry, get off the subject. Yeah, it was really good because, as I said, it was multi-dimensional. It was bright, shiny lights every time something come on. It was something different, something interesting, and it was all appealed to everyone across the board. Going to the completely opposite end of the scale, Nico Rosberg has decided to enter a team in the Extreme E teams, like his old teammate Lewis Hamilton, and that's just neither of them are driving, but the competitively rivalry off the track is just worth watching alone.
I'll give you a tip on that. I'll be guaranteeing that neither Lewis nor Nico or anybody else who's running a team in that is putting a single cent of their own money in or is giving anything much to that series other than the use of their name. It's they're getting
paid for the use of their name.
Nico's actually putting a couple of dollars in it, unlike Lewis. Lewis probably won't, but Nico's going to shell out a couple of loose coins out of his pocket change. So, but that's just the word on the street at the moment. Probably because he wants to beat Lewis like he did last time when he left.
Isn't that the secret to success in motorsport? Spend someone else's money?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you end up with a small fortune in motorsport by starting with a large one.
Yeah, exactly. Same as your
And what about, I'll let you do the honours, Brett, because you got to speak to him a few weeks ago. It was a great honour and the most successful driver at present from Australia, the best export we've got, and a great Aussie going out there, going great guns this year in Renault, and gets to drive an F1 car next week.
Yeah, well, that's great news. I mean, we've got a few people overseas now. It's starting to sort of pay off the focus on getting young guys overseas. And we mentioned, of course, our mate Hugh Barter last week as well. And last time I saw, he was in Monza. I think he's in Monza for this week and end as well for just for look on for Formula 4, the Italian Formula 4 series, and he's going to run in the French F4 series. next year. So yeah, there's lots of there's some good talent overseas at the moment, and that's the secret. I mean, is getting them. Is getting young talent, out of karts, and if they reach the pinnacle of karting, is get them overseas ASAP, because that's the problem, and it's been the problem for forever. When we were at the Macau Grand Prix, 10, 12 years, I think it was probably 12 years ago now, Trevor Carlin, one of the main sort of, team owners in Formula 3, and he's got a car, Indycar team now as well. He was saying, both on camera and particularly off camera, by saying, you just send us people too old. You look at people who are in their 19, 20, 21, 22, and you say, oh, we got this great young driver. And it's like, terrific. When we hear about great young drivers, we're talking about people who are 15 and 16. We want to see them at 16, 17 at an outlay, but we don't want to see them at 23, 24. They are not young drivers at 23, 24. And I think that's the problem that we've got at the moment with the people who are thinking that S5000 is going to be the great stepping stone into international success, because unless they're running those cars when they're 15 and 16, which is a challenge in itself, I can't see anybody overseas going, oh, wow, you're the S5000. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I
better mention his name there. Better mention his name, Oscar Piastri. Good luck over there, because he's got day 2 of the 2018 Renault Formula One car, which is the last car they're allowed to actually go out there and have a free-for-all fun under Formula One regulations. Because if they use any of the 2019s or 2020 cars, it's completely illegal. They can't even let the kids go for a spin around the track or around the block, I should say. So good luck to Oscar on day 2. He's in good company with Christian Wingard and Guns Zhu. I think Zhu's, it's his 3rd time in a Formula One test, so he gets.
I think he will make, depending on what happens with this current situation, I think he's one we'll definitely see, and just simply because of the fact the amount of money and the amount of eyeballs he's going to bring in from mainland China. I mean, to have, he is a genuinely competitive driver. We've seen that in Formula 2, and I think that I think at some stage he will end up in a car somewhere, because Formula 1 will want him in there.
Big shout out to there you go. A young fella sent you a lovely letter last week, which you shared with us on a private page last week, and he's a carter down here in Melbourne.
Yeah, it's funny to me. I've actually just opened. That was actually from Mum Cherie George, who sent us a lovely note last week, saying that she was controls a bit worried, probably quite rightly so, about the sort of stuff that might be out there on the internet. And Riley, her young son, 13 years old, was watching Full Course Yellow, and she just sent us a message to say that she was happy that it was comfortable and that we were.
We were on the big screen.
We're on the big screen, yes, which is not necessarily a benefit, I would think. I think the smaller screen where.
So we don't want to lead young Riley astray by suggesting he gets into music by Regurgitator Autism.
No, we don't. No.
Behave. No. Let's leave
Aussie bands.
Leave River Phoenix alone for now.
Yes.
What else did we see? Ferrari got a new diffuser for the Portugal GP as well too. So hopefully that's a good upgrade, makes them a bit more competitive for Charles and the gang.
Yeah, well, probably for Charles. I think it's probably not going to do much for poor Seb, because I think Seb's pretty much shut down already, and he's just going through the motions at the moment until he. They'll give him the placebo diffuser. They'll tell him it's the new one, but really it won't make any difference anyway. It's probably just the old one, and he won't care because he won't even look anyway. So there you go. On the bright front though, talking Formula One though, big news was that first time since 1996, the Australian Grand Prix 5.6 kilometre circuit is getting a resurface before 2022. Yeah. Well, that's yes, and it certainly needs it.
When was the last time it was resurfaced?
1996.
What was that, Pete?
So that's when it was laid
1996.
down. Wow.
96. Yeah, okay, so it's well and truly overdue. And a lot of the drivers
That's
have
not bad for a
commented
racetrack.
that it's pretty bumpy out there. Because
Just don't forget the
used every
original
day.
comments from, was it Berger, who was sent out and came back in complaining it was too slippery for a race course and had to be reminded that it was a street circuit.
Gerhard Berger, you're talking about, Stuart?
Yeah, I think it was Berger who made those sorts of comments.
Gerhard Berger, the saviour of the DTM.
Well, maybe we can see if he wants to bring DTM to Australia, because that would be more interesting than watching V8 Mustangs.
There's no DTM left to him. The DTM
Good point, Stuart.
officially immort.
Yeah. Also, it's going to it's on the quiet side, but obviously Westercott's announced that the Australian Grand Prix is going to be the opener next year. Whether we have a crowd or not, who knows? But Vietnam, Saudi Arabia, and Netherlands, maybe even a chance for a 2-year double for Netherlands if it proves successful enough. And there might be a few new circuits on the just opening up to the world, and let's see something new.
Yeah, had a look at that Zandvoort one after people said about it last week, and that is some serious banking, that's for sure.
Really?
That looks like a Gran Turismo course.
Yeah,
I was looking forward to that.
I've seen sprint car tracks that are flatter than that.
Yeah, you get a view because they ran TCR there a few weeks ago. I think that's the one because I mentioned to you to have a look at that, because I mean you didn't notice it was looking at it from the outside. It was a bit like Bathurst, where you sit there and go, like, it's not as steep as all that, and then you see it in real life. But then when you went into the in-car shots from TCR at Zandvoort, and you saw them going around that banking, you went, they're going to run Formula One cars around that? Wow, I want to see that.
We saw how much fun Indycar had at the banking at Texas, and F1s generate more downforce. They'll go through those corners faster.
It's not going to be as long. It's not going to be that constant radius going on for so long. But it certainly looks steeper than the banking at Indy. Yep. So I think it'll provide all sorts of fun and games, and I'm really looking forward. Let's just keep our fingers crossed that it is safe. But because of course they'll get, if they're allowed to have any sort of crowd there, it will be a massive crowd, because the Dutch are just mad about their motorsport. The first year, I think when the show we did from Le Mans, when I was lucky enough to get onto the starting grid, one of the things I did and turned around was look at take some shots of the grandstand and put in the thing that it was just a sea of orange who were there for Jan Lammers and the Racing for Netherlands team. It was just, as far as the eye could see, there was probably 30,000 people in those stands, and I'd say that at least more than half of them were head to toe in orange. It'll be a massive crowd.
Couple of drivers that are in the Formula One paddock this year that won't be having to worry about any of those problems that we just discussed in the last 2 minutes. Pete, you saw the announcement for a couple of drivers that are going to be departing us.
Roman Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen leaving Haas. So
come on, give us the goss. Who's replacing him?
Gunther Steiner said he wants young drivers. So it could be a thing where they make Haas like an AlphaTauri for Ferrari, where and they bring in someone like a Mick Schumacher. Even though he is tipped. He's one of them that they reckon, yeah. And maybe if you want a more experienced driver against a younger driver, maybe Sergio could go in there. I don't know who.
Word on the street is a Russian called Nikita Mazepin.
Yeah, Mazepin is quite a good driver, and he will bring money. I mean, this is obviously the thing is, like, you can't look at just who's talented. You've got to look at, particularly for a team like Haas, who's bringing money, and Mazepin will bring money, and he'll bring considerable money as well. So I would imagine that he's going to be high on the list. There's quite a few people in Formula 2 at the moment who are not necessarily right up the top there with Schwartzman and Schumacher, but they're probably good enough to make it with the amount of dollars that they're going to bring in. It's the same at Williams as well. Williams is looking to bring in another pay driver, and so it looks like, unfortunately, they're saying that George Russell might be for the jump as well, which would be a real shame because he's shown a lot of talent, and it'd be an indictment on Formula One if he was sort of pushed aside because of he just didn't have daddy's money.
Just watching Stewart there doing some test driving for the Penske team over in the US, doing some banking there. Thanks, Stewart. I usually watch this.
I just thought I'd throw some of the footage.
Well, when I see you driving, I usually use that for bedside reading when I'm trying to put myself to sleep. Just because that's all you're doing is just going bank after bank after bank. But on the side note to what Brett just said, Perez's tip to go to Williams, and if just taking Fernando Alonso aside for a second, because we all know he's going to be rejoining Renault next year for a long lost passionate love affair. Hulkenberg was probably the biggest comeback of the year for 2020, and he is there's a little whisper going around he might be joining the Red Bull team as well too, one of the second tier, the Toro Rosso.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's good. I'd love to see Hulkenberg back. He's obviously done a fantastic job when he's come in his super sub role and all the rest of it. I'm not sure. I mean, with so many young people, it's like supercars here. There's lots of talent here. We see this log jam of young talent coming through Super 2, and you're sitting there saying, "Oh, that guy should be in that guy should be in supercars. That guy should be in Formula One. That guy should be in Indycar." Whatever, and they're just not able to get in there because the established people are not going anywhere in a hurry. They're getting I heard today, for instance, I was really surprised that Takuma Sato is apparently about 41 or 42. And they were saying, well, will they push him aside to get one of these young guys, one of these young Americans in, or somebody from Europe? Antonio Felix da Costa, I think, was mentioned as a guy that they would like to get in there, but it's like, and same with Scott McLaughlin. I mean, we might as well talk about that. Scotty is over in America now. He's getting ready for the weekend for St Petersburg. Haven't heard what the weather's going to be like. I don't think that'll worry either way. I don't think it'll particularly worry Scott. He's just behind the wheel now, and Penske are saying, look, this is not an audition, just basically this is a reward. Just get in there, do the best you can, keep out of trouble, have fun. But at the same time, if he does really, really, really well and on a street circuit, especially if it is a bit wet, he probably could. It'd be very hard for Penske or anybody else to turn around and say, well, thanks for coming, Scott. Back to Australia with you, and we'll see you in, might get you a race next year. Like,
if he's only
they could use it. Yeah, they could use it to upset everybody else. I mean, if he turns around and just does the standard Australian road course thing and blows away the field, it'll put the wind up quite a few other drivers, wouldn't it?
I think his benchmark would be and it's always been the case, especially with the test driving days. If he scores anywhere above his teammates, he's a shoe-in for another drive, and that's pretty much standard. If he beats all of his teammates in his own team, good luck. He's basically signed on the dotted line for another spin.
Right, I think you can't sack a winner.
Well, sorry,
you can't sack a winner.
No, well, it has happened before in.
Well, you can in politics. Hopefully.
Ask Kevin Rudd and Julia Gillard and all the other prime ministers we've had in the last 10 years.
Hang on.
Yeah, you can't.
Don't forget. Change your smoke alarm batteries. Change your prime minister.
Good point. That's our motto for the night. Stuart, well said. Yeah, don't forget you change your prime.
I think what Stuart was saying in terms of also it will be it's a great bit of leverage that Roger has got to renegotiate contracts here and there, just to sort of say, we'd love to keep you, but we've got this kid from New Zealand and oh geez, talented. And
He
he's
just
really
beat you in the
young, and
last race.
he'll be happy to drive for meal vouchers to McDonald's. I mean, so it's up to you guys. Will, we love you, but
Burger King
tough.
wants to sponsor a new team, and we've got McDonald's, so we're gonna shape shift them out, and because now we want a Big Jack, and we're gonna go with we're gonna get a Big Jack, and they'll do it for half the money at the moment.
Incidentally, just going back briefly to the Grand Prix, just looking for a comment from Richard. The rumours, there are rumours about that now. If we do run the Grand Prix, because the idea is if you're going to run the Grand Prix and there's going to be no spectators there, it's an awful lot of money to build a temporary racetrack to run a race that has no spectators.
I'm just going to interrupt here and point out that Phillip Island would be fabulous with Formula One cars.
Yeah, but they'd have to destroy Phillip Island to make it make it usable for
watch out the wildlife in Phillip Island.
Well, the thing is, there's stuff that they run at the historics every year that is way louder than the current Formula One cars. Things like Matra V12s for a start, and older Formula One cars. But what is being rumoured is that if they're going to have to come all this way for a race meeting that has no spectators, and they're building it, that rather than have one race at Albert Park, we might well have two, the opening two rounds of next year's championship.
Yeah, I did hear
haven't they been doing some back-to-backs in Europe?
This year, yes, yep, this year. And
I
think
actually
that,
thought...
Pete?
Sorry, Pete.
I think that would be a favourable option, because if you close down public roads to hold a Grand Prix in the current climate, I don't think that'll go down very well if there's no crowd there. I don't think that'll go down very well. I think to hold two races with no crowds would be a more favourable option.
It would also.
You could always run the second round with the reverse grid of the finishers from the first round.
Yeah, they're not going to do that.
Very controversial. Controversial.
The other advantage of doing the two races is it allows them to maximise their income. If they're not going to get income through the gate, it allows them to maximise their income from the support races, because obviously everybody wants to run at Albert Park, and we know supercars will run at least one round there. But if they're going to have a second meeting, they can have the Melbourne 400 for the supercars in the first week. Second week, the Melbourne 250 for the Albert Park 250 or whatever for TCR. They can have S5000s one week. They could have GT, the Australian GT Championship. There's going to be no Bathurst 12 hour. That's unfortunately been cancelled.
See, I held my breath there for a second because Richard and I were really hoping you were going to say there was going to an Excel support category for the Hyundai Excels so they can run around as well too.
Perfectly possible. That will
think about the other opportunity if you don't have the crowd there. There's nothing. Think about the other opportunity if you don't have the crowd there. You've got no problems putting light stands around. Why couldn't we have a night Grand Prix that fits in the prime time broadcast in Europe?
Oh, that can of worms.
Come on.
I totally agree with it.
Again,
it would look spectacular.
One of the two, yes. One of the two would work, yes. Have a day one and have a night one if you get the opportunity to have them both. I agree totally with you, but there's just,
I think
it's that's where politics comes back into it again.
And I think at the moment,
and the placard waivers.
And I think at the moment, Melburnians are already feeling a little bit inconvenienced, and if you run an event and close off public roads, I don't think it'll be very favourable politically to. Especially if you ran it at night, I don't think it would go down very well.
Well, the politicians aren't that popular with the public at the moment anyway, so it wouldn't really change anything.
Got an extra every comment like that. You got to pay $1, just like the coffee at the moment.
Okay. Anything before we go? We'll wrap this up. We've been
just an update on the. on the two-wheel stuff, just quickly, like I give you the juicy bits each week. It doesn't. There's a strong chance that Marc Marquez will not. I updated everyone last week that he wasn't going to be racing on the weekend just gone. A little bit of a strong rumor going around now because he's actually out of the points and not racing this weekend in MotoGP. And of course, he has his broken arm, had the plate put in it. First one was that he had to go in for a third surgery. Honda and himself has just completely dismissed that and said that's just rubbish, that someone just trying to make headlines for no reason. But he may not race anyway for the rest of the year just to put himself on ice and everything like that. The other one as well, though, too, that's sort of been found out, which you wouldn't have known if you were a MotoGP fan on two wheels following the number one prototype bikes in the world, is that in the last few years, Honda have fallen in the trap of making that bike specific to Marc Marquez's style and his riding. So his brother Alex is riding one at the moment. Bradley Smith has been stepping up onto it as well. It might be, Stefan Bradl's been stepping up on the other bike and it's filling in for the time being. Jorge Lorenzo rode it last year. So what they're doing is they've built this bike up around this guy and no one else can ride it. And they've been found out. So they've had to actually change a lot of the bike, which you can't see cosmetically when it's going around the track in practice or qualifying, let alone the race. So he may not may not return for the rest of the year, which adds a great dimension to the sport of MotoGP at the moment because it's been exciting all year without someone dominating and winning every single race. And there's been a few dust ups, there's been a bit of cutting edge, all in good fun, all in good racing spirit, and it really makes for a great championship in the two wheels this year. So if you haven't caught a two-wheeled MotoGP race this year, it's as good as the World Superbikes usually is when they were actually dicing it up towards the end.
Also, on that subject, was announced today, Honda have announced that that Repsol have re-signed again. So that's one of the longest sponsorship deals in all of world motorsport. That's become sort of, part of the Repsol Honda. It just, fits together. It's like the old days of John Player Lotus. It's been going on for that long. So they have re-signed. And as we said a couple of times, any sponsor at all who re-signs during this particular time is, all sponsors are welcome, but particularly during this time, we really should be grateful for anybody who continues to sponsor the sport in these current conditions, because obviously things are still very uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen. I mean, a lot of people, everybody's putting on the best scenario at this stage, saying like, this time next year we'll have the vaccine, everything will be back to normal again. There is absolutely no guarantee of that. And we've got to, if we're going to have, motorsport at any level, we're going to have to find workarounds. And, Supercars found it, Formula One has found it, Indycar and NHRA have found it in one way or another. So, at least, even for the state level, we've really got to find ways of getting cars back out there and getting people back out onto the track, because otherwise, because the longer the break goes on, the more and more people, and I've had a lot of feedback from a lot of drivers, a lot of people who are just going, when this comes back, I don't know whether I will. I've found other things to do. I've found other ways to spend my money. I've actually found I've got money to spend for the first time in my life. I might put the car up for sale and give it a break. Also even things like, marshals and the rest of it, who have just been in the habit of just, every weekend going out and doing their stuff, who might have found other things. They might have taken up golf or tennis or gardening or whatever the hell it is. So yeah,
fishing.
Fishing. God forbid that people. Fishing.
Anyway.
Yeah.
That's like a
worse. They could
marshalling
have
job.
taken up nuclear fishing.
Oh, I was going to say, it's not that different.
We got hydrogen
play on
cars
words
coming
there,
out.
Stuart.
Yeah.
Well, when you're marshalling, you're just waving a flag at times and being observant. So when you're out fishing, all you're doing is just waving a rod and being observant. So it's not much any more physically challenging.
Yeah, don't get me started on fish. Fishing is bad things about fishing. bad things.
I have
Hey,
very
listen,
fond memories
The
of
best
fishing.
sort of fishing uses explosives, and we'll just leave it at that.
The
You've
best
been
sort of-
watching too many Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner cartoons lately. That's what you've been doing.
And
Not
speaking,
like
and speaking of watching Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner cartoons, I think that's probably not a bad way to spend the rest of this evening. We've got things to do. I don't know. I know, Stuart, you'll be on office hours. Will you a little bit? You're doing office hours tonight?
Probably. I believe there's a special guest in tonight. Or
Oh,
it's
yes,
production-based.
yes, got it. Yeah, I've got to give this a plug because the guest on office hours. If you don't know, it's in the middle of the night Australian time, but it's what we're doing now. We're sort of
1
based
a.m. on
ourselves-
YouTube.
1 a.m. on YouTube, but the guest tonight, the first half is just basically people talking about live streaming, television production, all sorts of media related issues. But the second hour of the program is something, usually something special or a guest of some sort. One of the guests tonight is a name that anybody of my generation who watched television back in Australian television in the 1960s and early 70s would know very well. The Galloping Gourmet, Graham Kerr.
Good God, is he still alive?
He is still alive and he is doing a new series.
That's a plug. That's a plug. He's still kicking.
He must be in his 80s. He must
He
be, but
has to be.
he will be the guest on office hours. And Stuart, if I'm still awake at that time and watching, I'll post the question myself. But ask him about Glad Rap and Harry M. Miller.
Oh no.
That
I'll
sounds
put a
scary
note
and
down.
stuff. Can I just ask it because the question? It's not weekend at Bernie's. Is it weekend at Curry's?
Yeah, well,
If he's still alive, he's still alive.
Yeah, he's doing this. He's doing this stuff. He's doing an online thing, and he's doing some stuff on public television, sort of their version of community television over there. But Graham Kerr was the first celebrity chef. He went all around the world, and for a long time here, he was the guy. On morning television at about 10 a.m. every morning, pretty much after the kids' shows finished, things like Here's Humphrey and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Graham Kerr would come on as the gallery. Chris, you'd remember him, wouldn't you?
Absolutely, yeah.
I think I
So
briefly
hang on,
do as
it's
well
Glad
too.
Rap and who?
Harry M. Miller.
Miller. Oh, good.
Graham Kennedy's manager, the great entrepreneur in Sydney.
Yeah,
Peter
it would have
Russell
been more
Clark's
like
been.
Weekend
I'll-
at Harry's.
I'll tell you what the story as I've heard it is.
Uh-oh.
He was in Australia.
Should you tell us this before or after we finish streaming on YouTube?
No. There's nothing. This
Fine.
is just sort of a missed opportunity. Graham Kerr was, of course, very far. He was and Harry M. Miller approached him and said, "There is this revolutionary space age new kitchen product. We've never seen anything like it before. It's amazing, and they want you to be the face of it. And there will be a tie-in, and your face. And this is going to be worth. It's called Glad Wrap." And Graham Kerr looked at it and went, "No, it'll never take off."
There you
And
go.
knocked it back.
There's a prop.
And
For you,
if-
Glad Rap. There you
Yeah. So he lost, so he walked away from being the face of Glad Wrap in Australia, which would have made him an awful lot of money because we know what's happened since then. But that was.
I think you should ask the question. You should definitely tune in and ask the question.
I will
because
try-
everybody else is going to be like, "What?"
I will try. I will
I'm sure
try.
there'll be a few of those guys who know what Glad Wrap is. But
It must be a time because Peter Russell Clark's been back on TV endorsing knives again. I've seen recently as well too.
Is he swearing his head off?
No, he's
Probably.
he's not even asking where's the cheese either. So
Well,
anyway,
Well, we know where the cheese is. We've discovered now. We've seen all the outtakes from.
Oh, he went from being
Yeah.
a cartoonist to a chef.
Yeah, well, yeah, he was.
And on that
he
note-
was a cartoonist.
It is now
just
10
before-
o'clock.
I will let
Come on,
Brett
Doc.
wrap up.
Be
right.
quick, be quick.
I just need to go around the room. If you don't follow it or you do follow it, who cares? Quick tip for
Oh,
the grand
yes.
final, please.
Tigers.
Chris, Tigers, Pete,
Geelong.
Geelong, Stuart,
Umpires.
Bookies.
I've told you before, football is played with a round ball.
No, it isn't.
You satirist. Brett, your go.
The sport will be, the big winner will be Channel 7 because it's on in prime time for a change. They'll be the big winner, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed for Richmond's always been sort of my second team. It was also Melissa's team. We watched a few of their recent wins together, so I'll be sort of surrogating for Melissa this weekend and cheering on the Tigers, if only so that we can hear whatever crowd is allowed into the Gabba singing that song and screaming out, "Yellow and black!"
I might tips the Tigers too. I'm not really fussed on who wins, but I think they'll just be too strong. Although a lot of Geelong supporters, they think that Gary Ablett, who's been one of the greatest Aussie rules players in their time, including his father. So that would be a fitting farewell if he was to take a premiership back at Geelong before he goes. But he's won one before, so bugger him. Someone else should get to go and win one too, I think.
Yeah, well, considering that if you listen to his father, we wouldn't be here at all because apparently, about 4 weeks ago, the rapture was going to happen, and we were all going to fly up into the air, and Jesus would sit on his throne in Jerusalem.
Praise the Lord,
and cast all the evil sinners off the face of the planet, so that heaven could come back to earth. So.
I would just like to end on the note of a reminder that the dyslexic agnostic knew there was no dog.
There. Well, for what it's worth, I believe in dog, but I prefer cat. So,
right, Graham Kerr, wrap it up. Brett, off you go.
There we go. Yes, let's wrap it up. We'll see you next week. Nigel, as I said, if you would like to join us, if you'd like to come on the panel and join in this nonsense and make your contribution, might in the next couple of weeks want to try out a bit of new technology that we might that we want to play with as well. So might not be on Zoom next week. We might be on something else. I'm going to possibly give that a try next week. But if you would like, either way, if you'd like to join us on the panel, if you'd like to be a contributor and join us for a chat, if you're a racing driver, a current racing driver, an ex-racing driver, if you're a mechanic, an official, anybody, come on board and have your say here on Full Course Yellow. It's the television show we do when we're not doing a television show on In Pit Lane. Hopefully we will get back into the studio one day and we'll get back on Channel 31 and Channel 44 in Adelaide. But until then, from all of us here at In Pit Lane and Full Course Yellow, we'll see you next week. And I shall press the button that says end stream once and twice to say goodbye.